Welcome to Conversations with Big Rich. This is an interview-style podcast. These interviewed are all involved in the off-road industry. Being involved, like all of my guests are, is a lifestyle, not just a job. I talk to past, present, and future legends, as well as business owners, employees, media, and land use warriors. Men and women who have found their way into this exciting and addictive lifestyle we call off-road. We discuss their personal history, struggles, successes, and reboots. We dive into what drives them to stay active in off-road. We all hope to shed some light on how to find a path into this world that we live and love and call off-road.
Whether you're crawling the Red Rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2. Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Have you seen 4Low magazine yet? 4Low magazine is a high-quality, well-written, four-wheel drive-focused magazine for the enthusiast market. If you still love the idea of a printed magazine, something to save and read at any time, 4Low is the magazine for you. 4Low cannot be found in stores, but you can have it delivered to your home or place of business. Visit 4lowmagazine.com to order your subscription today. This week's guest on Conversations with Big Rich has been a gearhead from a very young age. He always knew he'd be working on vehicles, going to the shop with his dad, getting into 4x4s, going to Wyotech, to working shops, and then racing off-road, then on to Top Truck Challenge, then some Cal Rocks rock crawling, some Supercrawl, and then KOH. The automotive trades have shaped his life. And his newest passion is hunting. Well, hello, Toby Lavender. So good to have you here on the podcast and looking forward to this interview.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. I'm pretty excited, man. This is kind of a big deal. I've been a fan of your podcast for a while. I know a whole lot of people that you've had conversations with in the past and in these industries that we share. And so, I don't know why you'd want to talk to a schmuck like me, but I'm pretty excited about it for sure.
Well, you're one of those figures in the industry that people know. You grace the magazines a lot, with Top Truck Challenge and different builds that I've seen over the years. And,
Yes.
That's what this podcast is about. We're trying to open the eyes of most enthusiasts that if they ever want to get involved or had that dream of getting involved in the industry beyond being enthusiast, that all they got to do is apply themselves. And that's what this podcast does, is show that, everybody that's in this industry, started off the same way with a dream,
Yeah, there you go.
So let's get into the first question. And where were you born and raised?
Well, so basically Central California. I was born and raised in a little kind of a country town called Prunedale. It's pretty small. It's just next to Monterey. Monterey's kind of a tourist area, so a lot of people know that name, or that city, I suppose. Monterey, Pacific Grove, Carmel. Central Coast out on Central California, right by the coast. I'm literally minutes away from the ocean, but it's a pretty small country town. I love it. I'm pretty proud to say I was able to buy the property from my dad years before he passed that I was born and raised on, and so I got to raise my daughter on the same piece of dirt that I kicked around on as a kid, as a child growing up, and I've always been real proud of that. And I don't know, I love this place. It's a great area. A lot of people seem to frown a little bit on California for whatever. There's some obvious political reasons for some of that, but I love it. It's country enough for me. It's kind of where my love for the 4-wheel drive thing started, right? Because we were just born and raised in the dirt, and
Right.
My dad rodeoed, so we had a lot of horses when we were kids, and things like that. So it's really cool. It's just, like I said, a small town in the middle of California.
So your dad was into rodeos. That means trucks as well, because of course
Yep.
you got to move horses, and you can't move horses with a Volkswagen Bug.
Yeah,
That's
right.
So what was it like growing up in that Prunedale area as a kid? If you had horses, you probably had a little bit of property, or did they board them somewhere else, or?
No, it was a couple acres here. They subdivided the pieces and sold half of it years ago. But yeah, it was when I was a kid. It was 2 acres, and it was really open, just land. So it's nothing big or anything, but it was enough to keep the horses, and that was a big part of my life when I was really young. Was all that. Unfortunately, my parents went through a real ugly divorce, and it just a lot of that stuff went away and changed, and then. I won't get into the real bad stuff, but my dad became a pretty rough alcoholic and a whole bunch of stuff. So things changed dramatically, but it was really cool for a while. Certainly, we had motorcycles and bicycles and stuff when we were kids, and we'd always break our arms, on jumps made out of dirt or whatever. When we were young, I had two older brothers, so it was a cool house, family situation for a while until things went bad with my mom and dad. But yeah, for sure. With the horses and with the lifestyle, my dad was a decent mechanic as well. That was really his main trade. And so he got me into wrenching and got me interested in engines and whatever, cars and stuff. And so I knew pretty early on in life I was going to be a mechanic. And that's, all I really ever wanted to do was, work on cars. And so that was definitely the jump off point for me. My interest in engine, I guess motorsports is really what it grew into.
Right.
But that was my start. Yeah, it was just living out in the country and doing what we had to do and all that.
So, school, were you a good student, or were you one of those kids that, like me, that looked out the window wanting to get out of the classroom and go do something else?
Yeah, no, I think I was a little bit of both. I graduated high school. I went on to a little bit, I guess, advanced education or whatever, with trade schools and stuff. But I wasn't a slouch in school. I paid attention. I got decent grades. I think I was the first. I know neither one of my older brothers graduated high school or whatever, and so I graduated high school, and then I went to pretty much right after high school. I went to Laramie, Wyoming, to Wyoming Technical Institute. Just basically to be a technician, right? To work on cars, and at that point, it's funny. I definitely didn't have any dreams or aspirations of owning my own business. In fact, it was kind of quite the opposite in my mind. I told everybody back then that there's no way in hell I'm going to open my own shop. I don't want that headache. I'm just going to get a paycheck. And I think it might have been my dad, but somebody along the way said, if you're going to do something, if you make your mind up to do something, you do it really, really good. And I took that to heart. So that plays into the education part of it. A lot of people that fix cars for a living, automotive technicians, it's a passion, and they learn how to do it the best they can, mostly from hands-on. But the actual advanced education part of it, the training, the in-class training that teaches you things you can't really learn in the field, that's super important, especially today with advanced, how advanced these cars are nowadays. It's crazy, right?
Right.
So I've always sort of preached that to everybody, that real, actual, formal education in the automotive repair industry is critical these days. You just have to have it. And so I went to Wyotech back in, that was 89. And then over the years, I went to Sequoia Automotive Institute. Oh boy, a whole bunch of, actual training courses and classes and stuff over the decades I've been doing this. I'm doing my best nowadays, still today. We take every training opportunity that we can. I have all my employees sign them up for all the classes and things that we can find for actual formal training. So,
Right.
yeah,
That's important.
Yeah, you bet. Education is definitely important.
Yeah. I worked in the tire industry for a long time, with off and on, I should say, with Sears Automotive back in the day and all that. And they were really, the salesmen and management, they pushed hard on taking all the tire training courses. And since we sold just about everything, the different tire manufacturers would set up trainings, and it amazed me how many people didn't show up to them.
Mm.
And then it amazed me at how many people in the industry nowadays that are selling tires, that work for the manufacturers at a higher level. We see that in this, as you're in the industry and you listen to them talk about their off-road tires, and it's like, dude, you don't know anything except what that piece of paper that came with the tire, the spec sheet told you.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and you're messing it up.
Yeah,
It's
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 funny.
sad, it really is.
Yeah. Yep.
So as a kid, what were your favorite classes?
Um, I probably pretty normal stuff. I sucked at math. I hated history. Yeah, I guess the yeah, it's funny. Like I want to say like of course the auto repair classes in high school, right?
Right.
I took welding classes in high school. I took auto body, which I never got into professionally, but I actually spent more time in auto body classes than I did the auto repair classes back in high school. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I had any real favorite classes on the normal schooling type of thing, but was always excited about cars for sure.
Did you play any sports or do any after school activities?
No, I mean, not so much, honestly, in a bummer way, because that's like I said, I was in my grade school time. I mean, I played football and baseball and stuff a little bit, but that was right when my parents were going through a really, really ugly thing, and
Right.
so it was, my life or my family was kind of messed up a little bit back then, and so it was rough on me as a kid. I didn't get the opportunity, that I didn't have a mom and dad to start a dynamic to take me to sporting events and
Okay.
or whatever. So, but I did a little bit of it here and there, but sports never really interested me too much. It's always really funneled back to me for it's got to have an engine, or I wasn't too excited about it.
What about, you said you were the youngest, and you had a couple of brothers. How much older were they, and did they go into the same thing?
No, they didn't. My middle brother is about 6 years older than me, and my oldest brother is about 8 years older than me.
Wow.
And they just went off and did their own thing. And my middle brother lives in Arizona. He does cabinetry now. My older brother, we've got to really we'll get into that in a little bit because it relates to my business. But we have a really not a good relationship. He's
Okay.
went on his way that I don't agree with, and I haven't talked to him in 10 plus years. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, I just wasn't going to let him drag me down any more than he did in the past, and so we separated ways. And yeah, unfortunately, there's not a great positive story to tell there. But
Well, that's family dynamics. Unfortunately,
yeah,
it's not all the Brady Bunch.
yeah, that's right, that's right. Yeah, it wasn't good.
So
But
so you stuck around. I mean, Wyotech, was that in? I mean, I don't know where the campus. Do they have multiple campuses?
they do now. Yeah, back
Okay.
then, I mean, shoot, this was 88, 89. But so back then, it was only in Laramie, Wyoming. It was the
Okay.
original. Wyotech's a fairly big trade school, and back then, though, it was just only the one Laramie campus. That's all they had. And so for me as a kid, especially growing up really, really poor, if you will, and so to travel all the way to Wyoming was an insane reality, right? And live out there on campus for 6 months by ourselves in the middle of winter. I mean, I remember the first time I saw 20, 26, 30 degrees below zero when I was there. It was crazy.
Right.
Born and raised in California, so,
On the
but
coast.
yeah, that's right. But no, that was an experience, man. It was great, and it definitely, definitely kicked off my career, as I was saying earlier about, if you're going to do something, do it really well. Excuse me.
Right. Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, said that the coldest winter he ever spent was a summer in San Francisco, and what he meant was the coast because of the fog
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
moisture and everything. And I figured
sure.
at that point, after I went and lived in Cedar City, Utah, and the first winter we had there, woke up to a negative 11 morning,
Yeah,
and since then have been in other places like up in Montana, where we have a house, and it's it was sunny out, um, beautiful skies, and it was negative 31 degrees. And I'm
yeah,
like, this is obviously Mark Twain never spent any time in the Rockies.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's for sure.
So
Yeah,
what was that? What was that like going to Laramie from, you know, Carmel, Monterey area that is just so idyllic in the views and
yeah,
the lifestyle you think about when you mention those towns, and then you're in Laramie.
yeah. It was just pure excitement, honestly. To really get out of this really small community for the first time in my life, I was super thrilled. I mean, it was a crazy time. It was just felt like it was just wide open all the time, and running 100 miles an hour for everything. And looking back on these things, of course, they go by in a blink, right?
Right.
But no, it was exciting, and I remember too meeting people there and talking to them, and of course, where are you from? And I'd say Prunedale, and just blank stare. They have, never heard of none like that. And then, oh, okay, Santa Cruz. Oh yeah, I know where Santa Cruz is, right? Everybody's heard of that.
Right.
Excuse me. I mean, that's only 40 minutes north of us, and then we mentioned Monterey, Carmel. Everybody heard of that, but surely nobody had ever heard of Prunedale, California. So. But it was an experience. I'm really proud of it. It was a good time in life, and it set my life down a better path than it was going on for sure. It really, really helped. And I know my mom really struggled to get me there too, right, financially and everything else. So uh, it was really good, man. It definitely helped me a ton and put my life on a path that I'm pretty proud of.
So when you went there, you really put the effort in.
I did. Yeah. Yeah, trust me, we did plenty of partying, but yeah, I took it serious, and I learned a lot from it, and certainly implement a lot of the things I learned there every day still. So
did the wind blow all the time?
Oh golly, man, yeah, they say, it was what was it, Nebraska was right there, right? So they say that it's so windy in Wyoming because Nebraska sucks so hard.
Right.
But boy, it was windy, man. Yeah, insane. I remember when it warmed up to 0 on weekends. We were out playing football in the snow with tank tops, Yeah.
So I always tell people that Wyoming is the Indian word for the wind always blows here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't believe that's the case. I made that up. But it's the one thing, you hit Wyoming border, and if you're driving on the 80 or anywhere, and it's just the wind is always blowing. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, the first time I'd ever seen semi trucks literally blown over on the highway. They're just driving down a straight highway, and they get blown so hard they just roll over. And so yeah, it's definitely windy there.
I've seen them blown over in the truck stops where they're parked.
Yeah,
and it's like that's crazy. I tried to avoid that. Whenever when we traveled for We Rock, the last 12 years we had a semi truck, and it was all loaded. It was our house. It was our garage. It was, our storage with all the stuff we needed to put the events on. And I watched the weather as much as I could from location to location and tried to stay. I mean, if the winds got above 35, I pulled over and found a place to shelter because I didn't want to end up on my side.
Yeah.
It was my house, my truck, all my stuff. It wasn't like I was, a lease. So.
Yeah, you got to protect it.
Yep. So then, when you went to Wyoming and to Wyotech, did you drive your own car or vehicle out there, and what was it?
No, I flew in there. I had a buddy, my best friend at the time. We went on the kind of the buddy system, right? And so we didn't have any cars or anything, and we met people from all over the place there. Of course, there was students there. Some guys had cars, and we buddied up with them over the time that we were there. So no, we flew in just super green to life and travel, and didn't know what the heck to expect or anything, and made the best of it, man. It was a really cool time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so you didn't take a car there. Did you have a car back at home?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I had always built trucks. That was the thing, man. It was always, when I was a kid, I was always in 4-wheel drives. And my dad was a kind of, I don't know if it's maybe a little too extreme to say a hoarder, but there was no lack of broke down junk in the yard to build something out of when I was a kid, and so yeah, I had 4-wheel drives and stuff all as soon as I got my license, man. My first truck was a 4-wheel drive. My brothers helped me out with that a little bit, I suppose, and I always had hand-me-down 57 Ford truck and a 57 Chevy pickup 4-wheel drive, and of course they had 40-inch or 44-inch tires or some crazy stuff. And, but yeah, it was always a 4-wheel drive gig for us, and nothing. I certainly didn't have anything that was dependable enough to drive to Wyoming and go to school there.
Right.
We barely made it out of town in our junk that we built,
And that was pretty much right out of high school. Went to Wyotech.
Yeah. I think just a few months after I graduated from high school, we got on a plane and headed over there. Yeah.
Did you work during high school? Did you have any jobs?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I started pretty young, man. It was cool. There was a shop in Seaside where my businesses are at now, and those guys, I looked up to these guys that worked at a shop, and it was a shop that my dad worked at, right? And so he would take me there. I'd sweep the floors and help out, and then I met all these guys that worked there, and they were just so gnarly, man. They were the coolest guys around. They had the coolest cars and had all the hot chicks, and they'd get in bar fights and beat everybody up, and they were just doing burnouts. And it was, for me, just this, it was amazing to see all this stuff go down. We were always at like car shows or mud drags or monster truck shows, or just those guys were always going to something cool, and they always invited me and always brought me, and so I really really idolized them and looked up to them. I think unfortunately later in life I realized that they were really really into drugs and all this other bad shit that I never got. I'd like to always proud that I kept my nose clean of that stuff, but I was around it a lot and I was blind to it. I didn't know all the ugliness that was going on behind the scenes, but as a young kid, it was just exciting, man. It was always the coolest cars and the biggest parties and the gnarliest stuff going on nonstop, and so that excited me and got me really into going to work every day that I could. And all through high school, one of the guys that worked at the shop would come and pick me up after school, at 2 o'clock or something like that, and then I'd ride with him back to Seaside and put in an 8-hour day at work in Seaside at the shop, and so that was definitely my big kickoff to getting into the auto repair industry so much, was working with those guys at a shop that my dad worked with in Seaside.
How did you find out about Wyotech?
Actually, my best friend Gene, he brought it up to me. I really didn't even know about it, and yeah, he brought it up that he was going, and I'm like, shit, I want to go. That sounds cool. Let's do that. So yeah, I don't even know that I knew about it until he brought it up. I think that's exactly how I heard about it first.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so you guys just applied, loaded up packed a suitcase, got on a plane, and landed in Laramie, and probably went, what the hell did I just do?
Yeah, pretty much, man. I remember my mom put together a big old party with raffles and stuff, and my aunt made dolls, and so she was selling everything that she could to afford for me to be able to go. Just to buy the plane ticket was a hell of a lot of money back then, and
Right.
For her to come up with that, so she put in all the work to make it happen. And I got student loans, of course, and paid that myself, but she put it together for us, to get there. And it was a small town, so it was a small community. So of course, my mom and his mom, my buddy Gene, that we went together, his mom and my mom were really good friends, and so we all got along and knew each other, and they just put it together somehow to send their kids off to school, and that's what we did.
Yeah,
made it work for sure. It was cool.
So you go through Wyotech, you get some schooling. You were there, what, 6-8 months?
Yeah, it's a six-month course. I could probably get into this later, but I really wish I would have stayed for the business courses too. But the auto repair classes that we took was 6 months.
Okay. The business classes you can always pick up later on, but that's one of the downfalls that I know that with the off-road industry is there's so many good, talented individuals that are either welder, some kind of fabricator, welder, mechanic, really know the tech side of things, and then the business acronym is not there, and they struggle and not able to keep the business going, and they always end up working for somebody else, and then they come back and try again, and very, very few make it on their own, even a second or third time. So seeing that you're doing that, and even though you didn't take the business classes, is pretty good.
Yeah. That's super true in my experience too. And that was my story, was like the reason I wound up owning a shop or opening a shop was because I was really, really good at fixing cars, but I didn't have a clue about how to run a business, I mean, geez, I remember the first time that we did $1 million in 1 year in sales. I was like, I was blown away. I couldn't believe it. We made $1 million, right? My accountant looked at me and said, it cost you $9.99 to do it. You didn't make nothing,
Right.
And I didn't have a clue what that meant. I didn't know there was a difference between money and profit, or any of that stuff. And shit, I was years into business at that point too, but it was just really, really clueless to the business side of it back in those days and in the beginning days. I mean, we've been at it for 26 years or something now. And so yeah, the business side of owning a business was something I was clueless to.
And so when you get back from Wyoming, did you go to work for somebody else, or did you jump right into hanging up your shingle?
No, I worked I went to work for somebody else right after that, and excuse me, I'm kind of getting over a cold here.
No worries.
Yeah, I went to work for this shop called Rose Automotive in Seaside, which is right where we're at now. And that was really cool because the owners, this is a thing that really set my life down the off road path, right? With the owners of that shop were desert racers, and
Oh,
so that was super exciting to me, of course, right? And I just got hired on as a mechanic, and I was doing tune-ups and whatever I was doing back then. But they had all these cool freaking race cars too, and so I was basically got to know the owner of the shop really well. Him and I became really lifelong friends because of all this. But he turned me on to desert racing, and that's what really got my passion, if you will, for this thing that I was kind of around it, this dirt and four-wheel drive stuff and off-road stuff all my life, but to get really excited about the racing part of it, that was sort of given to me by a shop that I worked at, right? That's where my so for I forget how many years, I think about 10 years, I worked for the Bradfords. They owned Rose Automotive in Seaside, and we built race cars and stuff on the weekends and raced every chance we could. It was really cool.
Bradford's. Did they ever
Yeah,
race
I know
Vora?
yeah, I know you're a big part of Vora. So yeah, Steve and Ace Bradford, and
Yeah,
oh yeah,
absolutely.
I figured you know them. They're lifelong Vora guys and desert race guys. And so yeah, Steve Bradford was really a mentor to me. He gave me my first opportunity, if you will, put me in the driver's seat of a race car for the first time, and they had plenty of them around, right? You just go out back, you can find an old chassis, we can put enough parts on that thing and make it run and go peel out, and so we did. I worked for them and teamed up with them and helped their race effort forever, for a long time. And then he eventually gave me the opportunity to get behind the wheel. And I think that literally the very first time I drove one of his race cars, he had a little short course out back in his property there. And about the third corner, I rolled the freaking thing. The very first time I ever drove a car, Fortunately, he didn't kick me out of the driver's seat and let me keep learning and doing it. So that was what really gave me my start in the off-road thing, on a race level and a professional level, if you will. Was working for the Bradfords there.
Okay, because they raced like Class 10 or
Yep.
buggies, if I remember
Yep.
right. And so you were when you drove that car and rolled it. It was probably a swing axle car.
It was, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yep.
and those are a little bit more difficult because you got to get them to slide. Because if
Yep.
they don't slide, they they ball up.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. A little bit of history with those guys. I mean, they've been with Vora. I raced Vora for 10 years or so, but um, yeah, long history there with Vora for sure.
So that was all Vora before I took over in 2003, the end of 2002, beginning of 2003. Then probably.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it was quite a ways before that. Honestly, I think I raced Vora from. I'd have to think about that. It would be, oh geez, yeah, long time ago.
Right. So you got a chance to race Prairie City and and did you do any of the desert racing too?
Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. We
Cool.
raced. I mean, we did. We chased the points championships for a long time, whether it was with the Radfords or I was mostly kind of behind the scenes. Like my race effort, I teamed up with a guy who's a dentist. It was Mike Livermore. He
Yeah.
had a two seat class one car, and we raced it mostly in a sportsman vet class. But it was a fast class one or two car back then. And so, I raced with the Bradfords. I got to do some short course and a couple of desert races behind the wheel of their cars. But then when I teamed up with Mike Livermore, that was my first time doing like full seasons, and we won the championship. I think twice. I know we won the overall desert or the desert series. I don't know if we won the overall thing, but yeah, I raced Prairie City, all those short course races. I think at that time it was like two in the beginning of the season, then it was all desert for 4 or 5 races, 6 races, and then it was two more short course at the end of the season.
Right.
And that was that was back when Yerington was 400 miles. It was pretty cool
Right.
time.
Yeah. That's awesome. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that. Okay.
Yeah, that was my first sort of 10 plus years of the off-road thing for me was starting out desert racing. We raced class 1 and 2 and 10 and 5 out of class 5 unlimited Baja that I built in Bradford's garage, and basically, kind of getting into this thing racing like this, it was pretty obvious that you either better have a lot of money to do it, or you better be able to build your own junk.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that really kicked my career down a path of learning fabrication and building your own stuff, machine shop type of stuff. We were machining bearing hubs and shit like that, like the things that we couldn't afford to buy. I would go to the store and get a magazine and look at a picture of it and go, yep, I can frickin' build that. I can figure out a way to do that. We got enough equipment. So yeah, that was, hold on one second, I'm sorry. All right.
So how big is that dog? I'm going to say like 4 or 5 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. The 200-pound attitude. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, that was my kickstart, man. And Vora was with the Bradfords there, and always been really proud of that time in my life. We had a lot of fun. We did a lot of traveling, and saw a lot of racing. Man, it was really, really exciting time.
Yeah, it always surprised me that Vora, with the desert racing, brought so many people from all walks of life. But everybody there was handy. Nobody went out and bought a car and had somebody prep it and then they'd race it. I mean, it was almost everybody that at least when I was involved with it, was hands-on.
Yep.
Everybody was rebuilding stuff in the on the trailer, there at Prairie City or between races, that kind of thing, just trying to keep the action going.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't think any of us were rich, you know what I mean? Yeah, it was just that, but that's what brought us all together too, right? It was everybody had kind of the same interest and same passion of building and seeing what if you could build something that worked and try it out, that was really cool.
Yeah, it was a great family.
Yeah, for sure.
So then how did you phase into, well, let's just find out, how did you jump into to the top truck? How did that come about?
Yeah, so in '98 I opened my first business, and my plan there, it was just Lavender Brothers Automotive. It was just going to be a regular automotive repair shop, and I liked building stuff. I was into the off-road stuff, and so I did that a little bit on the side, but it just kind of took off, and I started getting opportunities to build, whether it was race cars or just four-wheel drive related stuff or whatever. So it kind of naturally grew into a four-wheel drive shop or an off-road shop. And I only had 1 or 2 employees at the time, and so I was there, 12 plus hour days and 6 and 7, sometimes 8 days a week, it felt like, and just building whatever. And with that, though, we got opportunity to build some cool stuff for some big names. I mean, the desert race scene, like I built a Jeep for Jason Voss in the Voss family, which was huge in the desert, in the trophy truck,
Right.
back in the day. And so I got involved, just kind of natural, organic word of mouth of what we were building there spread, and I got involved with some guys that were bigger names in the industry that I just blew my mind that they even want to talk to me, kind of thing. And next thing you know, we were building a rig for them or something, and that actually caught the attention of Robin Stover, which I know you've had him on your podcast in the past.
Right.
He was the feature editor of Four Wheeler Magazine at the time, and well, actually it was even before that, honestly, that I met Robin, and we go way back. He's my main man. But Robin definitely is the one that got me in the door, I suppose, if you will, with Top Truck Challenge. But as far as becoming a judge and all that stuff, but I built a Jeep, right? It's kind of a long story. I'll keep it short, but I built a Jeep that really put us on the map, if you will. It was a '53 CJ3A or 3B, and it was pretty cool, especially for
It's
the
the
time.
one I
right?
remember. Yep.
Yeah, coilovers and all that stuff, right? It was a big deal even to have coilovers back then. We were sponsored by King and all this stuff. And back to the desert racing stuff, I knew Brett King from when he was with Custer Shocks and all these things. So we built this Jeep that really was cool. And I didn't do it to impress anybody. I didn't do it to compete with it. I just wanted to build a cool 4-wheel drive, And so I built this Jeep, and one of my service manager at the time actually filled out the form that Four Wheeler Magazine put in the magazine back then to apply to get voted into Top Truck Challenge. And so, for people that might not know, Top Truck Challenge is not something that you just signed up to and you could go there and compete. It was an invitation only, right?
Right.
And so it was kind of a unique and cool format that you couldn't buy your way in. You literally could not. You had to get voted in by the readers of the magazine, right? And so the service manager cut out the form in Four Wheeler Magazine where they would have you put your name and a little bit of information about yourself, a little bit of information about your truck and a picture, and send it into the magazine, and then they would publish that, and then the readers would vote on this form of who they wanted to see compete in the next year's Top Truck Challenge, right? And so, long story short, I got voted in, and I did the Top Truck Challenge with my Jeep in 2002. And so that got me to meet all the guys at Four Wheeler. And Robin, I think, was just starting his career there at the time in 2002 with Four Wheeler Magazine and Top Truck Challenge. So I did the competition in 2002, did pretty good, and really enjoyed the time. And, of course, with all the magazine coverage, it really, really kicked off my company name, if you will, and my name and stuff in the industry. It really helped that a ton. And I didn't really even set out to do any of this. It really wasn't my desire. Like I said, I just opened an auto repair shop, and we were going to do tune-ups and brake jobs and, make a decent living. But it just naturally grew into this because I was, I guess, good at it and started to become known for it. And I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I'd much rather build a, crazy rock crawler than put a radiator in a Honda Civic. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we just kind of went with it, and it grew. My company grew into this, 99% 4-wheel drive off-road shop. And so we wound up buying lots of welders and machines and lathes and mills and all the stuff that it took to do it over the years. It just kind of grew into that. But that's how I got started with the Top Truck Challenge, was actually doing the competition in 2002. I wasn't even terribly in the know about the Top Truck Challenge. I didn't know how big it was, and it's so local to me, like where I was born and raised and where my business is right here in Seaside and Prunedale. Well, Hollister Hills is where they do the Top Truck Challenge, or did the Top Truck Challenge, and that's only 30 minutes down the road. So talk about being a local to that unique event, right?
Right.
And Hollister Hills is where we went and goofed off all the time. That's where we go 4-wheeling. It still is. It's a beautiful, amazing off-road park, right? It's really well ran and managed, in my opinion. And so it was just right down the corner, And so when my service manager filled out that form for me to get voted in the Top Truck Challenge, and then we actually got voted in, I was like, yeah, whatever. I was probably going to go wheeling there this weekend anyway. So sure, let's go do this Top Truck Challenge thing, see how it goes. And holy crap, was my eyes opened at that time to how big that event was and how badass that type of scene was. It was freaking cool, man. I just was blown away, and then so that really kicked it off. And then I think the next year I went back and I spectated, because once you're a competitor there, you kind of they'll let you in the gate to watch, the years after, because it was a closed event, not open to the public. Nobody could spectate, very limited access type of thing, because they really wanted to protect their pictures and stuff. This was magazine days, right? Before you could just get this on the internet for free. You had to wait and buy the magazine to see what happened, type of thing. And so they kept it pretty closed gate, And so I went back in 2003. I think that's when Robin Stover really started getting in with the magazine right about that time. And so Robin, I think, was the one who invited me back in 2004 as a judge. So that was my first year of coming in and judging the event, right? So I was the new judge. I didn't really do much, for the year or two, whatever. But somewhere around 2006, I guess it was, Robin wanted me to be the head judge. And this is the kind of something that was a little funky, but I'm kind of proud. I'm pretty proud of it too. As a judge, I don't want to throw anything under the bus here, but as a judge, I saw some stuff go down when it came to the judging at Top Truck Challenge that I didn't agree with. It was pretty shady shit, to be blunt about it, right? Like, the judges would go around with their scorecards and witness the event and judge it the way that we judged it, put our notes and all these things. And at the end of the day, we'd go into this little camper where all the judges would meet, where the main judges were staying, and we turn in our scorecards, and then they tell you to get the fuck out. And then the next day, the scoring came about, and it was a little different than what we saw go down, right?
Right.
So again, I'm not talking smack about nothing, but it was something I literally witnessed, and I wasn't too proud to be involved with that, right? So when Robin when Robin invited me back to be the head judge, I said absolutely, but we're going to have to talk, because we are going to be transparent, and we are not going to change score numbers because somebody's running a tire that is sponsored versus the guy that actually won this event that's running a tire that's not a sponsor. You know, so I kind of pridefully, and maybe this is just my perspective, but I'm kind of proud to say I brought in a pretty good positive change to the Top Truck Challenge that had been going on in years past.
Right.
And it was a little eye-opening to when I came in to be a judge too, to see this go down, because it was when I did it in 2002, like I know hands down John Reynolds won that year, and he earned it 100%. That guy was amazing, and that rig was incredible. But I won more individual events than anybody throughout that competition. So I had a strong second, like miles distance from third. And at the end of the judging, I was scored at fourth.
Right.
You know, whatever. It's kind of rubbed me wrong. But then I came in a year or two later, and I saw how they were actually judging, and I went, that's why. So anyways, to circle back, like I was probably going to walk from even judging Top Truck Challenge when I got invited to be the head judge, and then we implemented that we were putting scorecards up to the public or to the competitors daily. So it was super transparent and very, very legit. So I've always been really proud of that, bringing that change into the Top Truck Challenge, and then I enjoyed another 10 years of doing it with them or so. After that, it was great.
You got to have that integrity.
Yeah.
Especially, when it comes to sponsors and drivers that are sponsored, the sponsors, of course, expect to win because they put a lot of effort into that. They pick the best driver, or who they feel is the best driver, the best rig, who's going to represent him the best. And if they win outright, that's great. But if there's shenanigans going on to make sure that the sponsor wins or a certain driver wins, that's wrong in my opinion. And having been, a race promoter and rock crawling promoter since 2001, it's the one thing that I always prided myself on was my integrity. I didn't care who it was that showed up, who their sponsor was, who was the sponsor of the event. The rules were the rules. The point scoring was the point scoring. And, some teams, didn't quite get that. They felt that, they put a lot of money into it, or they were so-and-so and they should always win, or, their sponsor was the sponsor of the event, and, that any calls should go their way, that kind of thing. And it was like, sorry, that's not how it works.
Yeah. Yep. And I will say that I've been around and followed your career for quite a long time, been around you probably a lot more than you know. And that is absolutely your reputation. So that's something to be proud of for sure.
Right. And, I'll die on that sword every day, Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. That's cool, man. So yeah, the Top Truck Challenge thing was cool, man. I've been involved with that a lot for a long time and at a lot of different levels. It was really a great experience.
So that first rig of yours, that was the Mr. Twister, is that correct?
Hey, there you go. Yeah. Yep. It was actually just a license plate on it. It was registered originally, but for the street. So that was the license plate on it, kind of a nick. Back then we named our rigs. I'm not sure everybody does that anymore, but everybody had a name for their rig, And
right.
It had 16-inch, King coilovers on it. It had a crazy amount of articulation, and just kind of a little nickname was Mr. Twister, and put that on the license plate.
And it was white and had like colored ribbon down it or something, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Exactly. Yeah. I rolled it really, really hard at the Supercrawl in Farmington one year, and then we repainted it the same kind of scheme but different colors. So the second half of its life, I say it was silver and red, but originally it was white and blue and gray.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long did you do the rock crawling competitions?
Well, so it was, the Top Truck Challenge, competing in that opened up a lot of doors for me, right? I mean, so that was really when we started on that. I never got big into rock crawling competitions as far as like chasing points and going to every competition or anything. I was really selective because I was running a barely making it business. I didn't have a lot of time or money to travel, right? So, so we did, we've done Cal Rocks at Moon Rocks, and, I did the Super Crawl. We did the Extreme Vendors Challenge up in Oregon a couple times. In fact, we even got invited to what they call the Southwest Top Truck Challenge thing in Florida. We went and competed all the way in Florida one time. Robin and I did, which was a huge deal. But so, yeah, the rock crawling thing, I think, went on from 2003 to probably 2010 or so, somewhere in there. And then that was kind of like when, KOH started getting big, and everybody was kind of transferring from going real slow to going as fast as you can over those big rocks.
Right.
That transformation is kind of just started blending together like it is now with the Ultra 4 cars. And so, I don't know, sometime around 2015 or something like that, we started racing King of the Hammers and stuff. But the rock crawling thing was a lot of fun back then. And, I think I heard you talk about it in probably more than one of your podcasts, but the ingenuity and the trying this and trying that in the beginning of building these rock crawlers and stuff, it was just exciting. And you kind of had to try things. You had to build things in a certain way to see if they worked. And if it failed, well, you cut it off and try something else, right? That was, to me, the most exciting thing. And it's kind of grown so big now. And so almost cookie cutter in a way with the most of the race cars that are out there.
Right.
It's
that way with the racing or the rock crawling. There's a couple of chassis builders in the rock crawling, and a couple of chassis builders in the KOH that are, or even into trophy trucks that it's not like, especially at the pro level, or what we consider the pro level, that guys are, still one-offing a chassis or a car to try things, or to build something a little different. It's gotten to be, like you said, a little more cookie cutter.
Yeah, for sure. The throughout the 2000s, basically, I don't know, all the way up to say 2015 or so, it was a real fun time for me. We were doing some competing, but I never got really, really big into the competition end of it. It was always, I met this guy named Derek Summers at Summers Racing now. He's really big in KOH. He's getting really well known, doing really, really well. But he was my best friend, or still is, really, but best friend for a long time. And we would hit every trail. I mean, we were up at Fordyce and Rubicon and, Bear Lake. And I mean, we were up in the Sierras on some trail every freaking weekend. Most times, if we didn't break something in half, we wouldn't even take the rigs off the trailer. And it wasn't even let me call Derek and see if he wants to go to the Rubicon this weekend. We both naturally knew we were going, And so we found ourselves up just wheeling all these trails, hitting all these trails that we could for a long time. And that was super fun. I really, really enjoyed that for, quite a long time. The competition end of it is just a whole different deal than just hanging out with buddies and going and hitting trails and, barbecuing on the tailgate or whatever. And I just really, really enjoyed being up in the mountains and up sleeping underneath the Jeep and shit like that. Just a lot of fun back in those days,
Do you get a chance to go wheeling now? Do you get out and get some dirt therapy?
Yes, yes and no. Not as much as I want to. I don't even have a really gnarly rig anymore. I got a Jeep Gladiator on 37s, but my life has changed a lot. I actually probably 10 years ago, or I don't know, 8 years ago, I got my guide license. So I do guided hunts now. We do, for deer and bear and buffalo and elk and all these things, so I'm a licensed hunting guide.
Nice.
And that's always been one of my big life passions, is hunting and, everything related to that. But I put that on the back burner for decades because of the off-road stuff. Right. And so in the last handful of years, I found myself, I don't guide much, right? It's very limited stuff. I just do it when I kind of want to, taking guys on hunts and stuff. But that is a huge life passion of mine, is hunting. And so in the last 5+ to 10 years, no, I haven't done much wheeling at all. We actually, restructured the company too, back to the business. Like the original location, we opened that in 98. And then, I don't know, 6 or 8 years ago, I opened a second location, which is literally 3/4 of a mile down the street from the original location. And that's called the Automotive Service Center of Seaside. And then about 4 years ago, we opened our third location, all on the same street in Seaside. So we have 3, pretty good sized auto repair shops now. But I've moved all my fabrication stuff up to the third location. I've got a nice, probably, 1,000-1,500 square foot place where I do fabrication personally whenever I choose to, kind of thing. The companies are in a really good place. They're really, really profitable, multi-million-dollar auto repair shops. And that affords me the time to do some fabrication projects for myself and or clients whenever I sort of choose to,
Nice.
So it's grown from having to work 12-hour days to barely pay the rent to I kind of pick and choose what I want to do and when I want to do it. But I don't do a lot of I don't do a lot of big builds anymore, for decades. I mean, we were building some crazy off-road shit, some of the really, really cool stuff, at least I think so. And a lot of it got a lot of attention in the magazines and media in the years past, but I don't do much of that anymore. I'm real selective about the projects that I'll take on, which is kind of really nice because I really, really enjoy it when I get the time to do it now.
Right.
Whether it's hunting and or fabricating or whatever, I'm proud and happy to say that I kind of pick and choose what I do when it comes to that stuff. Now, the business side of it with the auto repair, that's a mainstream business. It's action-packed. It's fast-paced. We got to get these jobs done. We do a large volume of auto repair now. But I get to tinker around with cool projects, in my little space. And I love it. I love the lifestyle I've kind of built for it.
Cool. And so we talked earlier about, things were rough, the business side of it. And when did that change, and how did you make that change?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was really, it took a long time to open my eyes to lots of things. I think we talked a little bit about it, that it's kind of a common reality in this industry that a lot of the shop owners, off-road shop owners, are not necessarily businessmen, right? I mean, I think that we all kind of grew up in the dirt and we love playing in the dirt. And as we grew up, that turned into our toys have engines, and that evolved into our motor powered toys had 4-wheel drive. And then here we are, some reason or another, we wind up owning shops and building cool stuff, but don't have a clue how to run a business. The
Right.
business side, the profitability of it, and all these things, right? And of course, I think there's a lot for me. There was just personal growth was a huge one, no doubt. I matured and I grew up. I opened my shop, the first business, when I was 29, and we talked about the name Lavender Brothers, but my brother didn't have anything to do with it, and it was all on my shoulders. Like I was alone on this, right? I had some really cool employees that helped out as much as they could, but I was alone. I was just figuring this out as I went,
Right.
and making a whole lot of mistakes along the way. So that was certainly a part of it. So my personal growth, right about the time I was kind of maturing in life and other things, was really about the time that I really turned it on with the business. But there was kind of bigger things in play. And, we've talked a lot about Robin Stover, for example. He was a huge part of it for me. He came on board more as a friend, when he lost his job at 4-Wheeler Magazine because of changes in that industry. The print, physical print industry was changing because of the internet and all that stuff. And he was so connected in this industry. That guy could get a job anywhere, and he will put his mind to things like nobody I've ever seen. So I know that there was lots of opportunity for him out there. And I always kind of felt like he wanted to help me, sort of knew that I needed help in this thing, right? And wanted to help me as a person. We were really, really good friends. So he came on board and cleaned up a lot of stuff. That he made a lot of changes that were positive. But the big moment in my mind, the paradigm shift, if you want to call it that, was I realized that my employees were really, truly relying on me to provide the opportunity that they were showing up for work for. And, for a long time, I had friends working there and guys working there that we just didn't need a lot of money. I didn't have a house. I didn't have a ranch. I didn't have kids and I didn't need to make much money. And a lot of the kids that were working with me along the way, they didn't care much either. We were building cool stuff and having a good time. And that was awesome,
Right.
But times have changed. And now, Robin, for example, he was single when he came to work for me, and then he got married. And then not too much longer, he's got twin boys, right? And he needs to provide for them. And that starts with me. That starts with the foundation of this business, being able to pay him well enough to where he can live the life that he wants. And Robin's such a loyal guy. Like, I swear, I would hope I'm wrong in this, but he probably would. I always thought that he will just continue to work for me forever and sacrifice things in his life because I can't pay him well enough like he deserves because I'm not running the business right. And when that reality sunk in, it hit me hard. And from that moment on, I made a lot of changes, man. And I just knew that I needed to make this thing very substantial. And the opportunity was there. I just had to run it and manage it properly, right? There's a saying that I really, really like, and it's when the tide rises, all boats rise.
Yes.
And I realized that if I'm the harbor master here, I'm going to raise the freaking tide. And anybody that's going to take this ride with me is going to thrive. And we can also do this while being really, really good to our clients and providing a really good quality product with a huge nationwide warranty and all of these things that we provide. We can also make money, and I didn't know that along the way, right? It took too long to really realize that. But when I started really, another thing I say is I started working on the company, not for it or under it, right? And so when I kind of turned that on, it was really, really rapidly the positive changes that came in, especially when we started really, really focusing on profit margins. We had endless amounts of work, like endless people out there that trust us to build their stuff, or even if it's just regular routine maintenance and brake jobs on their Honda Civic or whatever, just endless amounts of opportunity. We just had to do it right, and design these jobs. Before we do the jobs, we got to design them so that there's going to be profit in them, or just don't do them. And, I often say, like, I can go broke sitting at home. I don't have to get up and drive to work and work 12-hour days and bust my knuckles up and do all the things that we do to barely scrape by, to go broke. I could do that sitting on my couch,
Right. Exactly.
So why work really hard if we're not going to really, truly benefit from this, And, Robin's just one example. I have 27 employees now, and each one of those have families and have life desires. So each one of those, I take it really serious that if they're looking to me for a paycheck, well, I'm going to be in a position where I can provide that, and I can provide a good one for a long time, make sure it's sustainable. And there's just so much to that. But I really wish I would have thought this way, 20-something years ago, because I'd be financially pretty good right now. Not complaining, but holy moly, all the years I wasted, building cool stuff but not making any money, where I could have been building cool stuff and making money. Right?
Yeah, hindsight is 20/20. And that's one of the things that like we said, is you see in this industry is there's a lot of great fab guys out there that just haven't been able to do it on their own because of that lack of business knowledge and how to make things, how to be successful. They, everybody wants to make, $125 or $140 an hour shop rate or whatever. But, how do you justify that when you're doing a build and, you may have, how many hundreds of hours into a build? You look at it and say, well, I can't charge this guy, $100,000 to build this rig. But
$300,000 or $400,000, yeah.
Yeah, but it is. That's what has to, that's what has to happen to be successful.
Yeah.
And if the guy isn't willing to pay for it, then he should be going to rough country and getting a cheap bolt-on kit.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the reality of that, like you said, and especially in our area, I mean, our base labor rate's $249 an hour, right?
Wow.
Yeah, and our diesel rates, we're a diesel specialty shop. One of the locations we specialize in diesels. I mean, we have a variable labor rate, but some of it's over $260 an hour. Diagnostics, $300 an hour.
Right.
And that's the going rate in our area, so it's crazy to think. But yeah, if you try to make even $150 an hour building some full tube chassis, 4-wheel steering, thing like we did for years, I built dozens and dozens of those. Lord, if you tried to make $50 an hour, it would be $150,000, $200,000 build,
Right.
and we don't have that clientele. I mean, Southern California, lots of places across the country now does, but we never really had that opportunity for those real high-end clients. I know Joe Rogan had a Barracuda built, for example. It was, $750,000, and that's a drop in the bucket to him. We didn't have that kind of clientele, right?
Yeah.
So, but I was fortunate. We did have a lot of guys that spent a good amount of money, and we got to build some cool stuff. But yeah,
Well,
back to the point where it really, the tide changed for me was just when I put my mind to it. I just made up my mind. This is what we got to do, and we can do this and provide a good service to the clients too at a fair price. I just got to make sure there's fair profit in it, or we're not going to do it.
right.
And so yeah, that was a huge turning point for me. And Robin called it out. He helped there. There's another guy too that was a big influence to me, and his name is Mike Hurlins. He's a naval officer, so he had a lot of free time on his hands, but just an amazing guy. And it's funny. He opened my eyes and taught me how to design products and parts and stuff in CAD. Right. So he originally gave me a bootleg version of SolidWorks, and I learned how to do all that. And that's when we started manufacturing products and stuff. But I remember being blown away that you could design this stuff on a computer. Yeah, I was out there with a piece of cardboard and a razor blade making 4-link brackets,
Right.
and in the beginning, right? Hand cutting and with a grinder, and it was a big deal when I got a bandsaw I could cut through metal with. Like, wow, that was huge. So Mike helped me out a ton and taught me CAD and all that stuff, and that's what really kicked off Triple Extraction when we started manufacturing products. And so I spent a lot of years designing stuff in 3D CAD programs, and again, mind was blown when there was this thing called a laser that could cut through metal. Like, what the? Are you kidding? He which is so common now, but it wasn't back then. And so he opened my eyes to that. So I owe him a lot of credit there. He helped me a ton on his own time and own dime. Again, selfishly, like Robin did a lot of, just helped me. So there's a lot of credit that goes to a lot of people beyond the hard work that I did, that I did want to mention. There's a couple of key guys that really, really helped me. And yeah, when we turned it on, man, it turned on. I mean, each company is a multi-million-dollar annual thing, and we got 3 of them now. And so it's really, really cool. We turned the corner, and things financially and business-wise, they're all legitimate corporations. As things are really good, So
Excellent. Excellent. We always want to hear those success stories. They're far and few between, especially, this last, 15, 18 years ago when we got into that housing downturn and the depression here in California. Most people thought it was just, a recession, but, 2008, 2009, 2010, that was a struggle. I mean, because like all of our drivers, a lot of them were involved in construction trade, and all of a sudden housing, just everything just blew up, and bank foreclosures and everything, and everybody lost so much stuff because they were handing out free money in 2005, 6, and 7, and it had caught up.
Yeah, it did.
And being able to survive that was key for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. It was tough for us, no doubt. I remember those years, and it was not easy. And I think during that time, we didn't do a lot of custom stuff. It was just, we lowered our rates, and we barely scraped by, but we were helping people with broke down cars, and so they could get to work and stuff. But we figured out a way to survive through it. And COVID, was another one fairly recent. It was pretty gnarly, man. There was some tough times along the way. 26 or 27 years in business now, and of course, over those years, you see a lot of changes and a lot of struggles and a lot of things go by, right?
Right.
But we're still here, man, and stronger than ever. So I'm proud of that.
Yeah, I went through a couple in different businesses that I had that I've talked about on the podcast here and there, and when I did the first CalRocks event in 2001, it was, we had just had a big, trauma in the U.S. And I thought, here I am 2 months away from getting going with the first event. And now, the world, the U.S. is turned upside down, but, we came back from that really well. And And that was a different situation than an economic turn down. That was just a big slap in the face of the U.S. But we were pretty strong at that point going into the early years of the 2000s. So
Yep.
so
Changes.
let's talk about what you're doing now and any cool builds or the kind of stuff that you're doing. Triple X traction is still thriving.
No, actually, we shut the triple extraction down years ago as far as the manufacturing side of it.
Okay.
It's still kind of a little, I don't know, I call it more of a nickname than anything nowadays. I mean, we still run the logo and we make some stickers every now and then. And everything that I do design and build, we laser cut 3X's into it just to carry on the tradition, for the stuff that we still do build. But on the custom fabrication side of it, I think I mentioned it, but I have a little corner at one of the shop, like 1,000 square foot, where all my fabrication stuff's at, and I keep a little project going where I'm out there welding and grinding and doing my thing. But day in and day out, all three shops are just ripping. They're busy as could be. At two of the locations, we're known for suspension and 4-wheel drive. So really, at any given time, I mean, there's a dozen or more Jeeps and Broncos, and of course JLs and JTs that we're doing lift kits. We do a lot of metal cloak. We do a lot of Dynatrack axle upgrades, lockers. I mean, I guess relatively normal mods nowadays, right? It seems fairly common, but we still do a lot of cool stuff. I mean, we're building, at any given moment, there's 3 or 4 Jeeps in there getting built up from bone stock to, 37s and damn good suspension, mostly street driven stuff, some trail ready, ready to go down the Rubicon builds. So we do a lot of those every single day, and it's really cool too, because back to the Robin thing, like he's such a free spirit too, man. I love the guy, but he is so passionate about the off-road industry, and he's helped kind of keep that passion in me too, because he's just so into it. And so he gets to design and work with our clients. Now he's really taking the reins on that. He works with every client that we build a Jeep. These customers will come to us with dreams of this and that, and Robin will inform them and help them and walk down this path with them of, well, if this is what you want and this is the budget you have, this is my recommendation of how to do it. So Robin, manages the shop and the boring auto repair and clutches and brake jobs and radiators and water pumps that we do day in and out every single day. But he also gets enough to keep him in his heart happy too, So he designs these things, and we build these Jeeps and Broncos. Now, Broncos are starting to be pretty popular out there.
Yeah, they are.
And yeah, and then we're always lifting trucks and putting lockers in them or steering upgrades. And again, of course, JLs and JTs. That market's just enormous right now, and still a ton of JKs. Well, most of the JKs are in getting head gaskets and oil coolers and stuff like that now, right? So
right.
we go with the flow, right? Whatever comes in the doors, but. Yeah, we still, as far as what we still do daily, we don't do full tube chassis, 4-wheel steering, crazy buggy stuff anymore. I've built a lot of those, man. And, I spent 12, 14-hour days, 6, 7 days a week in the shop building just dozens and dozens of those for SEMA. And I don't know, it was always, Easter Jeep Safari. There was always these time crunches and these budget crunches and all these things. And it was just drove me nuts. I loved it, but golly, it was tough, man. So we don't do any of that really crazy, exceptionally cool builds anymore. But we still build a hell of a lot of really nice Jeeps and 4-wheel drive stuff every day.
Well, that's awesome. That's, as long as you still have the passion for it and, you're out there doing what you love to do, then it's, like they say, it's never really work if that's what you love to do.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'm really thankful for that, for sure. You bet.
So the name Lavender Brothers, obviously, there's 3 of you, but it's just you, correct?
Yeah. That's another, back to the kind of broken family foundation here. The original plan was my oldest brother was going to come in as a partner to open the business. And I'll circle back too to the Bradfords, right? When I worked at Rose Automotive, just shortly after getting out of Laramie, Wyoming, and all that stuff for the first 10 years. Well, the Bradfords sold that business. And they sold it to a guy that turned out to be an absolute drug addict, just a piece of shit, right? And I stayed on board and worked for that guy for a couple of years until my eyes were open to what an enormous pile of crap that guy was. but I stayed at that company. I was proud of that. I was proud to work for Rose Automotive, and things went bad between him and I because I don't like being around drugs at all. I just hate that stuff. Right? I've seen a lot of bad shit around drugs, and I've never even messed with it myself. But so, anyways, once I realized how foul the dude was that bought Rose Automotive from the Bradfords, a couple years into this, I left. But I always felt like he took something from me. And it was right at that time that we decided to open the business. And my brother was supposed to come in as a 50-50 partner because he basically could come up with the money. I had the clientele, I had the training, I had the tools, I had everything to do an auto repair business, but I didn't have a penny in my pocket, right? And he assured me that he could come up with the money. So I went out, I found a building, I leased the building, I got all these things in motion, and it turns out he couldn't come up with the money. So at that point, it was too late to change the name. We were already basically open, for business in a weird way. So I wound up getting a loan from my grandparents, basically doing it 100% on my own. My brother never contributed to anything. I think that he fell into drugs too back then, and it just went sideways, right? But it was too late to change the name. So I always just ran with the name. But from day one, it's always been just me. So the name is a little confusing, but that's how it started. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
Yep.
And where do you see your future?
Yeah, it's I want to circle back to a lot of things like getting out on the trails and wheeling and keep building a cool project here and there. And it's kind of interesting time right now because I'm in the process of selling our second shop to one of the employees, right, which is a hell of a lot of money and a really, really good thing for my life because owning and managing, and I still work on cars every day. I'm still in the shop diagnosing cars, working on cars every single day for one or all of the shops. And logistically, it's really hard. Even though all three shops are only like 3/4 of a mile apart, logistically, it's absolutely insane to run three of these things, right?
Right.
So my plan is the original location of the Lavender Brothers shop. That's that's the strongest shop of all of them. Well, the second one that I opened about 8 years ago, I'm selling that one right now. And hopefully that deal will be closed within the next 6 months or whatever. And then I'll just have the two. And so that'll allow me to focus my attention to the third location, to build it up to be its own standalone entity. And hopefully within 5-6 years, I can sell that one off and I'll resort back to the original location.
Very good.
And that's my plan to sort of end my career. If I wind up selling the second and the third shop, that'll put me in a really, really good spot financially and time-wise too, free up a lot of time. I can put more time into the hunting business, right? I opened a company called Rincon Creek Outfitters. I think I mentioned that earlier. But I want to resort back to doing a lot more hunting, a lot more guiding. There's good money to be made at that. And it's just something I'm really, really passionate about. I really enjoy the hunting thing. So I want to get back to more of that. I definitely want to get back to fabricating some more, but on the terms that I don't have to do it to pay the rent,
Right.
So yeah, that's where I see my future going is I never lost the passion for the off-road thing. I never got out of it completely. We still do it every day, but on a very, very small scale compared to what we did for decades,
And family, are you married?
No, not technically. I mean, Tracy
Okay.
is my life partner. She's amazing. And we were both very, very happily unmarried, right?
Perfect.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I've got a daughter who's just turned 20. She actually works at the shop. Tracy runs all the books and all the management of the company. So we work together every day. Works out fantastic. I think that you and Shelley kind of do the same thing. You work together every day and
Absolutely.
live a life together too. And we've managed to keep it pretty strong that way. We talk about work at home, but it's never about the bad stuff. We'll deal with that on Monday. But so yeah, we found a way to work together and still survive in a relationship, But that's cool. My daughter's taken some auto repair classes at our local college here, community college, and to get the basic foundations of how cars work and stuff, with the idea that someday she might own one of these shops,
Nice.
And
Perfect.
so that's cool. Yeah, she works there now, and Tracy's there every day. So yeah, the family's strong, man. It's I'm really happy with that.
And getting out on the trail, you said you have a Gladiator on 37s, And are you hitting the Rubicon anymore, or are you just locally down there at Hollister Hills, or?
Yeah, well, no, I haven't been on trails in quite a while, but here's the thing with the hunting side of this. About, I don't know, close to 10 years ago, I bought a ranch just outside of about an hour and a half from where we live. And it's 20 miles of dirt roads from the first gate just to get to my cabin, right? I bought 640 acres outside of Hollister.
Nice.
And it's 20 miles of dirt road just to get there. They're seasonal, but there's 6 river crossings. You go through 6 different private ranches just to get to mine. So and we're way up in the Diablo Mountain Range. It's super rocky and gnarly. Like I have to winch in the wintertime when it snows just to get to the cabin, even with lockers and 37s there down to 10 PSI, bead locks, the whole deal. Sometimes you got to winch just to get to the cabin, right? It's freaking rad.
Nice.
So, yeah. So I kind of, in that way, I get a little wheeling in almost every weekend when I go work at the ranch, or, whether we're going up there just to relax or hunt or whatever. So I'm off road out in the dirt, in the rocks, damn near every weekend, just going in and out of the ranch, so I kind of get my taste for that, just doing that. But no, unfortunately, I haven't really had a lot of time in the last, I don't know, 5-10 years to get out on the trails like we used to.
And you're guiding, are you doing that at your ranch? What kind of game do you have there? Or are you doing it, are you going to like Montana, Wyoming, Idaho?
Yeah. No, we network with other guys. Like most of the guiding is down south in King City area. There's 200,000 or 300,000 acres that this company called Conservative Game Management. They're a pretty big operation, and so but then I lease. I've got access, and I make leases or deals with other properties. It's waterfowl season right now, so it's just dabbling in a lot of different things, in a lot of different places around Central California mostly. I did some bear up in Oregon for a while. That was kind of cool. So yeah, it's really tough to pin that down as a business, if you will, so far. But who knows what it might grow into in the future, right?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Especially if it's such a passion.
Yeah, I do enjoy it for sure.
Excellent, Toby. I want to say thank you so much for spending a Sunday morning here with me. I know you got a house to finish up, and you know you got hunting and cabin and all that kind of stuff, and spending the time talking with me and letting our listeners know more about Toby Lavender is awesome, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. It's been a lot of fun, and thanks for having me, man. I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure who would be too interested in Ishmuck, but it was a lot of fun doing this with you, and I hope people listen. That's great, man. I dig it.
Yeah, and next time I go through the seaside area, which I do probably once a year, I'm gonna make sure I swing by and say hello.
Yeah, please do, man. It's that you're always welcome. Just stop in anytime. We'll make some fun for sure.
Excellent. All right, you take care. Have a great Sunday, and it's the holiday season. Be joyful, be safe, and enjoy life, buddy.
Right on. Thank you, Rich. You too.
All right, you take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that's another episode of Conversations with Big Rich. I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you could do us a favor and leave us a review on any podcast service that you happen to be listening on, or send us an email or a text message or a Facebook message, and let me know any ideas that you have, or if there's anybody that you have that you think would be a great guest, please forward the contact information to me so that we can try to get them on. And always remember, live life to the fullest. Enjoying life is a must. Follow your dreams and live life with all the gusto you can. Thank you.